actually watched this movie for the first time 2 or 3 years ago, I actually really enjoyed it. It wasn't at all what I thought it was going to be, and it was definitely funnier than I thought it was going to be. So my prediction for what I'm going to rate this movie is 7. Any mission from God is not going to be as difficult as getting through this movie. Welcome back to Through the Decades. This is the show where I watch and review the top 10 highest grossing movies of each year, starting with 1980 to present day. We're kicking the show off with the year 1980. As a reminder, here are the films of 1980 that I will be covering on this show. Starting off with number 10, The Blues Brothers. The Blues Brothers was distributed by Universal Studios and came out on June 20th, 1980. It stars Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi, and it's directed by John Landis. The comedy brought in $57 million domestically, $115 globally, against a budget of $27 million, which brought it in as the 10th highest grossing film of the year 1980. The origins of this film started off as an SNL sketch. I've only just gotten to the age where I can actually appreciate old comedies like Caddyshack and Airplane. I don't think those are enjoyable as a child unless you're watching them with a father who is really laughing at them. And I didn't watch those movies with my father. So what I appreciate about this movie is the juxtaposition of these low-life thugs who have no regard for the laws anywhere they go, yet their entire arc, their entire story is to save this Catholic orphanage. I like that. They're gonna, break every traffic law, but it's all in the name of God. I think that's a pretty funny concept. That is a good setup for a comedy. However, I don't know what's left on the editing room floor, but it's not much. I can tell you that. This movie opens up like it's gonna be a slow burn, so buckle in, which is ridiculous because people likely saw the preview, as they called it back then, before they went to go see this movie. So you're literally sitting there for about 20-25 minutes before you even get to the first joke. And the jokes are sparse. I mean, they're there, but they're sprinkled throughout. This is not a comedy that is wall-to-wall laughs. You kind of got to look for it in between moments of dozing off, or in between moments of pretty good musical sequences. As for our lead performers, Dan Aykroyd was perfectly fine, but the script did not allow for him to flex his biggest muscle, which is talking nonstop. It was maybe like 3/4 of the way into the movie where he actually got to talk more, and that's where he really shines. So he was given a script I feel didn't match what he's best at. And then you have John Belushi. No offense to the late, great Chris Farley. I know he idolized Belushi, but that man was not funny. Can we please accept that as fact, as a culture? And to be fair, I didn't watch SNL during the Belushi days. The only things that I have seen John Belushi in is this film and Animal House. And in neither film was he captivating? Was he interesting? Was he funny? And I believe in neither film did he even try. I don't know. He could have just been so in his head that he thought he could skate by on name alone. I did not enjoy John Belushi. I think he pulled Dan Aykroyd down like a rock in the ocean. He was boring. He was dull, and the only time he was worth anybody's attention was when he was falling down the stairs, stuck in the chair. All right, that was pretty funny. And then whenever he actually did do some dance moves, which weren't that great. They were great against a boring film. And so any sort of movement you got to see on screen in the Blues Brothers was like, all right, this is good. I'm getting into this. What I think really happened with Belushi was that people loved him off camera so much that they wanted to see him on TV and in the movies. They're partying with him, doing coke with him. I know his stories are legendary, but for God's sake, I don't see that ever taking place on screen. I feel like Jake and Elwood were just coasting by on the screen with their hats and shades and their cheap suits. And I think everybody just thought that would carry, that joke of their costumes would just carry the film through. And it probably worked with a lot of people. Obviously it did. It's in the top 10 highest grossing films of 1980. But the only times I was actually engaged in this film were the musical numbers, because they really did come out of nowhere, and it was fun to be woken up and be like, oh, this is good. However, again, the editor could have cut those so much shorter. The songs they sing in this film are longer than the worship songs we sing at church. It just goes on and on, no matter how good they are. It's like my kids playing K-pop Demon Hunters, and it just won't ever stop. The music is perfectly fine, but stop. But it's gotta have an exit point. There's gotta be a moment where the song actually comes to a conclusion. And again, this editor did not know the meaning of the word finish. The other thing I really liked about the film were the car chases. I am a sucker for high-speed chases, for car crashes, the scene toward the end where the police cars are just piling on each other. I'm glad the editor was clearly on his coffee break again that day, because that just went on, and that's something I actually like. I could watch that all day. So yes, I get that ironically, the thing I hate most about this movie is that it does pay off in a couple of scenes here and there, where I'm glad the editor did not press the stop button. I said earlier that this film opens up feeling like a slow burn, and it really is. For a comedy, it's 2.5 hours. That is a slow burn. I'm not being cynical, because remember, I walked into this film excited to see it again. I definitely had to have seen it during COVID, because we were just all so bored out of our minds. I think we were just grasping at anything. Because this time around, I really did not have that great of a time with this film. The tone for this movie was just so jarring. You're going from slow burn to a couple of funny jokes. Suddenly it just bursts out in a musical number, which it can go unsaid that this film was extremely jarring. The tone went from slow burn to what am I watching to a musical extravaganza. Now that very well could have been the director's intent. I don't know. But if it was, he totally succeeded. Like, John Landis obviously knew he wanted to make this a comedy, being based off SNL. I just don't know if he knew how he wanted to approach the comedy. Now, I do love the gritty 70s aesthetic of downtown Chicago. It's got that grimy, just 70s feel. I always enjoy that. It's like you can almost see the cigarette burns on the film, right? Now, this movie is technically a musical, I think, and it does feature the talents of Ray Charles, Athena Franklin, and so many more. So, is the music good? It's not my type of music, so I'm actually going to step back from judging that. It's not at all what I would even listen to in the car, but I'm going to compliment it in the sense that it does add to the flavor of the atmosphere that they're going for here. All in all, the dance sequences, they were entertaining, they were lively, they woke you up. I absolutely loved the car chases, but everything else just felt really flat. And having Dan Aykroyd as front and center, I can't really blame the writers, because he was a writer for this movie. So who would I recommend this to? I don't know. My worst enemy? Just kidding. It's not that bad, because I know it's a beloved classic, and I don't mean to step on anybody's toes. If it's one that you saw 20, 30 years ago, go back and check it out. I'd really be interested to know if it held up for you. But definitely it's for lovers of offbeat comedy, and for people who just love the Belushi era SNL crew. Those would be the people I would recommend this movie to. And you might actually have a really good time. So if you're a diehard fan of this movie, and what I said ticked you off here, you have a chance to refute that. Click the Buy Me a Coffee link down below, and when you donate, you can have the chance to upvote this movie for the audience ranking. So for me, The Blues Brothers was unnecessarily long. As a comedy, it didn't know how to be punchy or snappy. I feel like it would be better served in the action section of Blockbuster Video. Before we go, I'm going to roast some of the critics that got this movie wrong, as well as some audience members. So according to Rotten Tomatoes, the Blues Brothers got a 71% score from the critics and a 92% score from audiences, which means I'm probably going to get some pretty nasty comments down below. It is what it is, okay? Let's take a punch at the critics first. So let's take a look at Frederick and Mary Ann Broussat from Spirituality and Practice. They gave the Blues Brothers a fresh score and said, "The Blues Brothers is packed with lively music, fantastic chase sequences, and non-stop slapstick comedy." Okay, I'm okay with everything in this review, especially the non-stop slapstick. Let me show you a few of the scenes that contain non-stop slapstick. Remember, folks, this is non-stop. The slapstick is galore in this film. Just like the movie, the slapstick refuses to stop. Ho-ho! I mean, don't call that fake news. No. Non-stop. From wafflemovies.com, we have Willy Waffle. I sure hope this guy doesn't live next to a Chuck E. Cheese. Anyway, he says, "One of the funniest movies I have ever seen. A classic in all sense of the word." Okay, let's take him up on this. One of the funniest movies he's ever seen. In the past, he gave DreamWorks' Boss Baby 3 out of 4 stars. Sausage Party, 3 out of 4 stars. Now, I tried that. After 5 minutes, I was done. 5 minutes, I was out. And I'm not a prude. I'm just thankful that's not going to be on any top 10 list that I have to review, okay? About The Boss, he says, "The Boss was hilarious until they got all emotional." Here's the kicker. He gave The Minions 3 out of 4 stars. So judging by his brief past here, Willy Waffle Wanker has no idea what a good comedy is. Let's jump over to the audiences. We've got Jillian B., who gave the Blues Brothers 4 out of 5 stars and said, "Thank you, Gunnar, for letting us watch this back in 4th grade. Peak cinema." All right. As a 4th grader, I can totally understand liking this film. In fact, it surprised me that it's rated R. Can somebody point out why? I was shocked. So showing it to a 4th grader, it's fine. There's nothing objectionable in this movie. All I can say is I wish Mr. Gunnar were my teacher. Shane C. gives it 5 out of 5 stars, says, "Probably one of the best SNL movies. Fight Me." Well, with a name like Shane, I would not be afraid to take this outside. So if you look back at all the SNL movies that have been made, the bar has not been set very high. Alan G. gives it 2.5 stars out of 5 and says, "Okay, but too over the top. A SNL skit that goes on too long." What did Alan expect when he went to the theaters to watch an SNL skit? For it to actually be 2.5 minutes long? I know I've overharped on how long this movie is, but it certainly didn't need to be that short. Now, if this review left you a little blue, don't worry. I'll be diving into the Blue Lagoon in our next video with clothes on. Don't worry, I will have clothes. Remember, if you want to suggest a movie for me to add to this list of top 10 movies from 1980, you have the chance to do so if you click on the Buy Me a Coffee link down below. The top 5 donators will get to choose a movie of their choice to add to this list, which I will be watching and reviewing and adding to this list. So for instance, if you have a favorite movie from 1980 that did not make the top 10 list, drop me a donation and I will take your request. This has been a review of the Blues Brothers. I'm your host, Andy Toy. Thank you for stopping in.